Okay, so now that we've been simplifying radicals in different ways, we added, we subtracted, we multiplied, we divide. Today we're actually going to solve a radical equation. So the first thing you're going to do is you always want to make sure that you isolate the radical. So that means on one side of the equation you just want the radical. So if I'm doing this one here, here's the radical. So I'm going to move this 2 over to the right. So now I have cube root of x equals 2. Then you're going to raise both sides of the equation to the power that's equal to the index of the radical. So we've talked about index a lot. It's that little number. So in this case, it's the 3. So in order to get rid of this 3, I'm going to raise this side to the third, which means I also have to raise this side to the third. And then we're just going to simplify and solve for x. So when you raise a cube root to the third power, it cancels it out. And you just get x equals 2 to the third is 8. So there's our answer. We don't have to do anything else to that. Now the one thing I'm going to add here is we're going to check for extraneous solution. So because we're doing radicals, we have to make sure that that answer works. And this is where your calculator comes in handy. So all you have to do is take your answer and we're just going to plug it back into here. So if I'm doing cube root of x, remember you just press math and it's number 4. So then I put in x is 8 minus 2 and I get 0, which is what this is. So that worked. And I just put a little check mark. Okay, so let's try number 1. First thing, isolate the radical. The radical is all by itself on this left-hand side. So step 1 is done. Step 2, raise both sides of the equation to the power equal to the index. So remember, this is a square root, which means there's that little understood 2 here. So we're going to raise both sides to the 2 power. So on the left-hand side, it goes away, and we get 3x minus 1 equals 4 squared is 16. So add 1, 3x equals 17. Divide by 3. So x equals 5.67. So I just rounded that. And then let's go ahead and check that. So square root 3 times 5.67. Now I rounded, so my answer will be close. Minus 1 equals, so I got about 4, and the reason is because I put that decimal in there. If I put the fraction, I should get exactly 4. But because I rounded it, it's going to be about 4. None of the others are like that. The others are all going to be whole numbers. Okay, number 2, isolate the radical. So here's the radical. So in order to get that by itself, I'm going to divide by the 5 because the 5 is being multiplied. So now I have cube root of 4x plus 3 equals 3. Step 2, raise both sides to the power equal to the index. So I'm going to raise it to the third this time. So that cancels out. I get 4x plus 3 equals 27. Subtract the 3. 4x equals 24. Divide by 4. X equals 6. Oh, I didn't check that one. Okay, let's plug it in. So I'm going back to the original. 5 cube root, math, number 4, of 4 times x, which is 6, plus 3, equals 15. And there's 15, so that works. Number 3. Now here we have a radical on both sides. So I have an isolated radical on this side, but not on this side, and that's okay. So what we're going to do is, because there's that understood 2 here, we're going to raise both sides to the 2 power. Okay? So on the left, it's still going to cancel, so I just get 35x equals. On the right, I have to put this 2 to the 5 also, and then the radical will cancel. So I really have a 5 squared times the x plus 2. You have to be extra careful and make sure you square the 5 here. So this would be 35x equals 25 times x plus 2. So we'll distribute on the right. 25x plus 50. So subtract 25x. 10x equals 50 and divide by 10. So x equals 5. Okay, so let's check that. On the left, I have square root of 35x, so 35 times 5 is equal to that weird decimal. And on the right here, I have 5 times the square root of x plus 2. So 5 plus 2 is equal to the same exact decimal. So that works. Number 4, isolate the radical. It's already isolated on this left side. So since the index is 4, we're going to raise it to the 4th power. So that cancels. 10x plus 11 equals 3 to the 4th is 81. Subtract 11. 10x equals 70. And divide by 10. So x equals 7. And let's check that. So to do a 4th root, let me do it on the school calculator so you see what it looks like. To do a 4th root, you're going to still press math, and then you're going to press number 5 that has the x. So I press number 5, then I can go back, I have to delete this and put in a 4. Okay, so then I have 10x, so 10 times 7 plus 11 equals, and I got 3. So that works. Okay, number 5. So number 5 is kind of like number 3. We have 2 radicals, one on each side. So I have this index of 3, so I'm going to raise each side to the 3rd. Remember, be careful here. This radical cancels and this radical cancels, but this 3 still goes to the big 3 in front. So we actually have a 3 cubed times x equals 7x plus 5. So 3 to the 3rd is 27. So 27x. And let's solve for x. So subtract 7x. So 20x equals 5. Divide by 20. So x equals 1/4. So let's check that. Over here I'll do 3 cube root of 1/4 equals that decimal. And on the right I have cube root of 7 times 1/4 plus 5 equals the same thing. So that works. So I just plugged in the 1/4. Okay, number 6, isolate the radical. It's already isolated on this left-hand side. So we raise it to the power of 2 because there's that 2 here. So on the left it cancels and we get x plus 18. On the right, make sure you do this correctly. You cannot distribute the 2 here. You have 2 of these. You have 2 x minus 2's. So on the right-hand side, we need to simplify. So we're going to multiply. So x times x, x squared. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. Negative 2x on the inside, and positive 4. So combine like terms on the right. X squared minus 4x plus 4. So I want to move everything to the side with the x squared. So I'm going to subtract the x, subtract the 18 over to this side. So 0 equals x squared minus 5x minus 14. And then we're going to factor. So 2 things that multiply to give you negative 14, add to give you negative 5 would be negative 7 and 2. So we get x minus 7 and x plus 2. Set each one of those equal to 0 and solve. So this one we would add 7, x equals 7, and this one we would subtract 2, x equals negative 2. Now we're going to check each of those answers individually. So on the first one I'll check is 7. So square root of 7 plus 18 equals 5. And then on the right-hand side, I have 7 minus 2 is also equal to 5. So 7 works. Now we'll check negative 2. So on the left-hand side, we have square root of negative 2 plus 18 is 4. And on the right-hand side, we have negative 2 minus 2 is negative 4. So that did not match. So that is going to be an extraneous solution. So I'm going to cross that out. I'll just put EXT next to it. Extraneous. It means it doesn't work. Okay, number 7. Isolate the radical. So number 7 and 8 are just like number 6, but I wanted to do a couple examples of these. Okay, so square both sides. So on the left, that crosses out. We get 2x plus 14 equals, again, write this out, x plus 3 times x plus 3. 2x plus 14 equals, and we're going to multiply here, x squared plus 3x plus 3x plus 9. So we'll combine like terms on the right. Move everything to the side with the x squared. So subtract the 2x and the 14. 0 equals x squared plus 4x minus 5. So we're looking for two things that multiply to give us negative 5, add to give us positive 4, which would be 1 and 5. So that would be x minus 1 and x plus 5. So split it up. X minus 1 equals 0. X plus 5 equals 0. Add the 1 over. So x equals 1. And subtract the 5 over. X equals negative 5. So let's check those. So on the first one, I'll check is positive 1. So 2 times 1 plus 14 equals 4. And on the right, 1 plus 3 is 4. So that one worked. Positive 1 works. And then let's check negative 5. Square root of 2 times negative 5 plus 14 equals 2. And on the right, we have negative 5 plus 3 equals negative 2. So that's one of those ones that only one solution works, so we cross that one out. We could put extraneous next to it. Okay, last one, number 8. The radical is isolated, so let's square both sides. So on the left, the radical goes away. We have negative x plus 28, sorry, negative 9x plus 28 equals, and you have two of these, write them out. Okay, so let's simplify on the right. Negative x times negative x is x squared. Negative x times 4 is negative 4x. 4 times negative x, negative 4x. And 4 times 4 is 16. So be careful with your negatives there. So negative 9x plus 28 equals x squared minus...
Hey, I got 1.
Okay, so I combine like terms on the right. So move everything to the side with the x squared. So 0 equals x squared minus, plus x minus 12. So factor, so two things that multiply to give you negative 12 but add to give you positive 1 would be 3 and 4. So x minus 3, x plus 4, and then solve for x. So x minus 3 equals 0. Add 3 over. And x plus 4 equals 0. So x equals negative 4. And then let's check those answers. So we'll plug in positive 3 first. So I have negative 9 times 3 plus 28 equals 1. And on the left, be careful because you have this negative. So it's a negative 3 plus 4 is also 1. So that one works. Oops, that one works. And then we'll check negative 4. So square root of negative 9 times negative 4 plus 28. And then on the right, we have a negative 4 plus 4 equals 8. So make sure you're careful. Oh, sorry, the light's in the way. There we go. Make sure on the right-hand side, if you have that negative, it's a negative, but then the x is -4. So the two negatives make a positive. So then that one also works.